The big New Game Plus update for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 has been out for a couple of days now. A lot of people have had the chance to jump in, try out New Game Plus, change the time of day, replay missions, hit the thumbs up button on this video, and so much more. And although a lot of these features should have been in the game from day one, absolutely, at least now it's here, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is feeling like it's in its definitive version. There's a couple of bugs that they still gotta iron out, but for the most part, this is kind of the complete version of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 that we all wish we had gotten when the game dropped back in October. And well, considering we don't know if/when we're going to be getting DLC for the game, and thinking that this is kind of the complete version of Spider-Man 2 that we have now, I think now is as good a time as any to do a tier list. So I went back, I played through all the Insomniac Spider-Man games, including the DLC for Marvel's Spider-Man 2018, and now I wanted to rank them from worst to best. Let's jump into it. Spider-Man 2018, I mean, this game is so special, but I gotta go all the way back to 2016 when we talk about this, okay? That initial E3 reveal trailer, I remember exactly where I was, and I remember exactly how I felt. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Hearing Yuri's voice for the first time, seeing that white spider logo, which immediately told us this ain't no movie tie-in game. We got hints that there was gonna be the demons, so everyone was speculating that Mr. Negative was gonna be one of the main villains of the game. My goodness, that was 2 years of just amazing content and interaction with you guys and so much speculation with the community. And that 2-year ride led to the release of the game in 2018, and honestly, at least for me, it lived up to the hype in every sense of the word. This is such a good characterization of Spider-Man, and yes, we knew from frame one when they introduced Octavius that he was the sixth member of the Sinister Six and that he's probably going to be the main villain of the game. But again, the writing here is so solid. It makes you care about this relationship, the father-son relationship between Octavius and Peter Parker, and it makes it feel all the more tragic when he starts to go down that darker path and when he starts to become Doc Ock. The game does such a good job at really delving deep into the idea of Spider-Man, that when Spider-Man wins, Peter Parker loses. He's got these financial troubles, you know, he can never catch a break. And although it feels weird to be like cheering that on, that's how Spider-Man should be in all media. And this game does a brilliant job with that, honestly. And again, yeah, Mr. Negative being one of the main villains, I give it so many brownie points for that. I love that they brought such an obscure villain like Mr. Negative to the forefront and pretty much made him mainstream. Now, that is a household name for Spider-Man fans. They definitely plucked some of the best Spider-Man villains ever and put them into this game. There's a lot of his rogues gallery packed into this one game. And not to mention, you know, the introduction of Miles, but beyond that, the fact that he does get bit by the spider and becomes his own Spider-Man in this game. Who saw that coming? I really, truly love this game. It holds a very special place in my heart for this channel, for myself, for the community, for millions of people around the world. I know that the 2018 Spider-Man game really means a lot. And so I feel like, you know, to even just avoid some pitchforks, we're going to put this into S tier, but I mean, genuinely, it is an S tier game for me. The DLC, though, is where things get a little interesting. You see, going into this, we knew we were going to get the City That Never Sleeps, 3 DLC chapters post-launch that were hopefully going to be of the same quality of the base game. Unfortunately, though, I just don't feel like they're as consistent. Let's jump into it. Chapter 1, The Heist. This was the introduction of Black Cat. I mean, she was teased in the base game. We had that new suit that we could unlock through those side quests where we were trying to take these pictures, but now she's fully revealed. Now we fully get to interact with her, and I mean, let's be honest here, they did a really good job of Black Cat in this game, okay? Her costume's looking pretty good. That's all I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say. But there's also a couple of weird things. I mean, Screwball, come on, Insomniac. Frickin' Screwball. The side quests are a little weird. It felt like there was some grasping at straws here. But overall, I kind of dig the heist specifically. Again, I like what they did with Black Cat here. I think they really nailed the portrayal. It was a little odd that they had her saying she was pregnant with Peter's kid, or having her essentially lie about that. But there's some other great stuff in there. I mean, that mission towards the end too, where you're teaming up with Black Cat, I thought that was awesome. Even the ending of the DLC, I mean, it ends on a literal bang, and then we have this introduction of Hammerhead and the promise that he's going to be kind of the main villain of this entire campaign. I was hyped about that. The heist, not perfect, definitely not of the same quality in the base game, but solid nonetheless. For me, that's going to go in the A tier. Turf Wars Chapter 2 has such a strong start. Apart from the worst freaking enemy types ever. Those dudes with the shields that charge at you, I hate them. But I mean, when you're entering that abandoned building, you're trying to save some of these cops that were held hostage by Hammerhead, and as well that one cop who has the Spider-Man watch, such a wholesome dude. Certainly nothing bad is gonna happen to him, right? But I think what this opening does so well is it just gives you that idea that, you know, sometimes Spider-Man just can't save everybody. And it's also a really good and compelling setup for Yuri Watanabe and her descent into becoming Wraith. It's a strong start, but for me, it's not a strong finish. I just would have liked if Hammerhead was just this really tough dude, you know? I don't think he needed some weird exosuit. He was borrowing like Silver Sable's gear or something, and that was kind of hinting at how she was gonna get involved in the DLC. I don't know, man. And then they did that whole thing where Yuri like shoots him in the head, and you think maybe she just actually killed the dude. But then, you know, one of the members of the mob was disguised as the paramedic, and then like just tased him, and he's back to life now. Like, at this point, he was in a body bag and probably would have been presumed dead for like at least half an hour to an hour while they were driving to the hospital. He would have some sort of like severe problems if he were to come back to life after that much time being dead or presumed dead. I don't know. So Turf Wars, it bums me out because I really love the opening to this DLC. I just don't love as much the ending. And still, there's just more freaking screwball, man. Freaking screwball. So Turf Wars for me, it's gonna be a C tier. Silver Lining Chapter 3 is where things really start to fall apart. But it's not without its good moments. This is the tough thing, is like there's always just that little bit there where I'm like, man, if they just did more of that, I would really love this. And with Silver Lining, with Chapter 3 for The City That Never Sleeps, it's the interaction between Spider-Man and Silver Sable. I think the way that they have their camaraderie is awesome. He's just like a straight arrow, but you know, Peter's still cracking jokes and being Spider-Man, really. He's trying to like give her high fives or give her some props, and she's just not having any of it. And I also love too that you get to team up with her on some of the missions. I thought that was super fun. She's honestly one of the more interesting characters from the base game that I was glad to see return in the DLC. Again, the interactions there are super fun, but then they do this thing with Hammerhead where they basically make him Silvermane. And it's just weird because like they had all the elements that seemingly would set up the actual Silvermane, but they instead made Hammerhead Silvermane. It just doesn't work for me at all. It was just super weird for me to see Hammerhead be in a body bag and his normal human body to then it's just his head and the giant robot body. What happened? How did they do that? How is he alive? What's going on here? Really, really bizarre finish to the DLC, but there's one glimmer of hope, and it's the post-credit scene where they actually tease that Peter is now teaching Miles to become his own Spider-Man. Still though, it wasn't enough to save it for me. Silver Lining, that's gonna go in the D tier. And then we have Spider-Man Miles Morales. You know, this game came out of nowhere. A lot of people were expecting we were just gonna get into Spider-Man 2, and by then we would learn a little bit more about how Miles has become his own Spider-Man, what they had done between the two games and all that, but no, Miles is getting his own entire game. Granted, it was like a spin-off game. You know, a lot of people like to say that Spider-Man Miles Morales is a DLC. I think you're crazy if you think that. Yes, it's got a significantly shorter story that runs about 8 to 10 hours, but it's still got a bunch of side quests in there. It's got a fully fleshed out story mode for Miles. I would have easily paid full price for this game because it is damn good. And if there's one thing that I feel like we can all agree on, and if we can't, then you just have to be like insane or something, it's that Spider-Man Miles Morales' gameplay is significantly better than the 2018 game. It's faster, it introduces new traversal abilities like the boost or the jump with his Venom powers, but also, man, the air tricks, the way that the animations seamlessly transition when you go into a web swing, the way that there's all these different animations with the air tricks, my goodness, so much fun here. It's the main reason why I ended up logging in way more hours into Spider-Man Miles Morales than I did into the 2018 game, because if I just want to free roam around the city, at least before Spider-Man 2 had come out, I want to be doing it in Spider-Man Miles Morales. And I mean, the setting is so cool. I really love what they did with the snow and how you can change the time of day and the weather effects. Insomniac, please, weather effects Spider-Man 2 would be great. The story, though, here obviously isn't as strong. I don't really like what they did with Finn. I'm not the biggest fan of her character, and I feel like, again, it was just a bit of a chore to get through. There is some great stuff, though. I mean, his connection to the city and his neighborhood, they really lean into the friendly neighborhood aspect of this Spider-Man. Plus, I mean, Prowler, I thought was awesome. I love what they did with Uncle Aaron, except for his beats. I mean, that dude has no musical sense whatsoever. And also, I mean, the opening too, you know, Peter interacting with Miles and saying, hey, you're New York's only Spider-Man. You got this. Take care of the city for me. And the music too, man, it's just so good. One of my favorites, honestly, is when he's making his own suit. It makes me more upset when I went back and played through this and saw that cutscene where he's working with Genki to make his own costume, and they have this fun song playing and everything, and it's so triumphant when he finally designs it and you're swinging around New York and he's just feeling like, now I am Spider-Man. It's beautiful, and I don't know why they threw that away for the Evolve suit. Insomniac, what were you doing? So yeah, Spider-Man Miles Morales, it's not perfect by any sense of the word, but its gameplay was such a huge improvement, and I honestly cannot believe how in 2 years' time Insomniac was able to create an entirely different playing Spider-Man game. There are some freaking wizards working there, man. So while I don't think this was better than the 2018 game, it's still pretty damn good, and I loved revisiting it. It is a high A tier for me. And that finally brings us to our most recent release in October of 2023, Marvel's Spider-Man 2. There was a ton of anticipation built up for this game, of course, right here on this channel. A lot of you guys had found this channel from me covering Spider-Man 2, and I appreciate that you guys have been sticking around ever since. And you know what? There has been some interesting discourse that has been created online with Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Some people feel that they missed the mark on some things. They feel that the Symbiote storyline just wasn't handled as well as they would have wanted. And to those people, I totally get where you're coming from. I respect your opinion, but man, I disagree. What they did with the symbiote, what they did with that entire third act, it was just one mind-blowing thing after another after another. I mean, that like hour to 2 hours of gameplay from when you go fight Kraven to then Miles fighting Peter, to then ripping off the symbiote suit, and then going and having Venom be introduced and playing as Venom. It is insane how good and how well paced all that is. I felt overwhelmed in like the best way possible. And that's excluding the explosive start to the game right away. Frame one, you're fighting Sandman. He's giant. He's destroying the city. It's epic. And don't even get me started. Kraven in this game is just freaking perfect. And you all knew already from the beginning that Kraven wasn't gonna be the big bad. You know, he was definitely gonna be one of the main villains, kind of similar to what they did with Mr. Negative in the first game. But of course, we were waiting for Venom. We were waiting for when Venom was gonna be brought into the forefront. And how better to do that than to have Venom with you in the controller in your hands, playing as him, being the one to kill Kraven. It just wraps up in such a neat little bow the character arc for Kraven and how he didn't want to go out on a whimper. He didn't want to go out dying from his illness. He needed to, I mean, to quote him, he needed to go out roaring. And it was just insane. That boss battle is so much fun. And the cutscene that follows is incredible. Him just saying, thank you. And us just, you know, ripping the head off the dude as Venom. Love it. Love what they did there. I get that some people did find it a little bit weird that, you know, the symbiote storyline was kind of like taking over the world and it being like generic alien stuff. But I also love that, I mean, at its core, it's still just, it's Peter's best friend and like he's hurting. He's been betrayed, or at least he feels like he's been betrayed. Peter has the symbiote in hand and is refusing to give it to his dying friend. And it then ends up leading to what becomes Peter's greatest failure. Yeah, the evolved suit sucks, okay? We took it off immediately. I mean, as soon as we could. And thankfully now with New Game Plus, you can wear whatever suit that you want during those moments. You're not locked to any costume. But man, there is so much greatness in Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I haven't even been able to get into a bit of what they did with Miles in this game, which I think is personally phenomenal. The way that it seems to the player he's been sidelined, and that's almost intentional. He feels himself like he's been sidelined, and that all comes to a head when he fights Peter. He tells him that you don't need to do this alone. And you know, they come together by the end of it. Miles learns too the way that Peter has still kind of been grieving after the death of Aunt May. Peter feels like it's been his fault. Peter is feeling like everything that's gone wrong has always been his fault. He's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He still feels like maybe he's the only Spider-Man that can do all this. He hasn't been looking closely enough at how much Miles has taken up after him, how much Miles has learned from him, and how much Miles is capable of taking care of the city alongside him, even by himself. And it takes one of the best arcs in the entire game, and that's Mr. Negative. Peter realizing that Miles was able to reform one of his greatest villains. Mr. Negative, you know, learning from his mistakes, facing them head on when he fights Miles in that like Craven pit. It's some juicy stuff, man. There's some great writing in this game. I don't care what anybody says online. You are not going to convince me that the game is bad. Try as hard as you might, but Twitter, you're stuck in your little bubble. I'm here to burst it. Again, I do not care what you guys say. It's a freaking masterpiece, and it is easily the best playing Spider-Man game ever made. The web wings, the speed at which you can traverse around the city, you know, the swinging even is much faster. They utilize those SSDs to their fullest extent. You play as Venom, you have random crimes where both the Spider-Man are interacting together, or Wraith is there, or Agent Venom is there. This is one of the best Spider-Man games ever made, man, and I can't believe that there are people out there that would try to convince you otherwise. Spider-Man 2 is at the tippy top of the S tier for me. It is my favorite in the entire franchise. I played through it on New Game Plus, all right? I'm almost getting that 100% now on New Game Plus, and it has made me realize again how much I love it. And it gets me all the more excited for Marvel's Spider-Man 3. I know that's still a ways away, but man, I cannot wait to see what Insomniac is going to do with that game, and obviously the introduction of the Green Goblin. Please, no Ultimate Green Goblin. That's all I ask for. And there you have it. That is my tier list for the Marvel Spider-Man franchise from Insomniac. And of course, I mean, my opinion rules all. This is definitive. I'm right, you're wrong. Don't even try and argue with me. No, I'm kidding. Okay, obviously my list is not definitive. This is just my opinion. The best part about doing tier lists like these is that you guys can disagree with me in the comment section below. Rank for me, including the City That Never Sleeps DLC, your worst to best for the Insomniac Spider-Man franchise. If we do get DLC, if we get any future announcements for the Marvel Spider-Man games, you know to keep it locked right here on this channel. Subscribe, turn on those notifications. I got you guys covered right here. I've been Caboose. I'll see you guys later.